Hello, Waardeestrijkers. I'm Dries.
And I'm Jente.
Welcome to the Château de Coudray-Salbart,
Which was built in the 13th century and since then never altered.
Let's take you along. According to legend, it was the fairy Melusine who constructed the mighty towers of Coudray-Salbart. Historical and archaeological research shows us that this medieval fortress was actually built by the lords of Parthenay in the early 13th century. In this time of strife between the kingdoms of France and England, the lords of Parthenay sided with the English. King John Lackland even gave financial aid to build the castle. It controlled the river Niortaise and the border of the Parthenay lands. Halfway through the 13th century, it was enlarged to its current size.
Our path goes around the castle with its mighty towers. The so-called double tower received its name from its shape. The big almond-shaped tower contains a smaller tower halfway up. Historically, the slender tower was built first and then encased in the bigger tower later on.
At the opposite end, the big tower also has an almond shape. The almond shape is quite a special design not seen very often in castle construction. There are 2 here at Coudray-Salbart, 7 at Parthenay and 3 at Loches. The first 2 were owned by the lords of Parthenay, who were close allies of the English crown. The castle of Loches was constructed by King Richard Lionheart himself. It would seem the almond-shaped tower might have been an English invention.
The southern wall linking the big tower to the mill tower shows traces of various phases of construction. The highly perched postern gate was probably the original entrance to the earlier castle.
The current-day entrance to the castle was protected by a half-round barbican, which has now disappeared. It was linked to the lower courtyard. The courtyard is a vast space that used to be surrounded by a wall 2 meters thick and 5 meters high. The majority of the castle's inhabitants used to live here. Several mounds are visible, which are the remains of houses, stables, a forge, etc.
The entrance to the inner castle is defended by a drawbridge which is operated from inside the portal tower. A murder hole pierced in the archway above the entrance allowed defenders to rain stones and arrows on unsuspecting assailants below.
Another unique feature of this castle is the corridor inside the ramparts. The entire corridor is pierced with cross-shaped arrow slits and links up the 4 corner towers. It is very special to see this feature in a 13th century castle in Europe. It forms a very efficient defensive mechanism and is said to have been imported from the Middle East during the Crusades.
The Bois Berthier Tower is round. but the ground floor inside is square and is topped with a barrel vault. The room is equipped with a chimney, 3 arrow slits and latrines. A spiral staircase gives access to the room above. This octagonal upper room has an 8 ribbed vaulted ceiling and has arrow slits covering every angle of attack.
The almond-shaped double tower has several very deep and iconic cross-shaped arrow slits at its lower level. The masonry work shows traces of the modifications when the smaller tower was encased by the bigger tower. The room is topped by a vault.
The corridor inside the walls leads us to the next tower, the Saint-Michel Tower, in the middle of the eastern wall. The lower room has an open dome ceiling. There were 2 arrow slits, but one became blocked when the castle was enlarged. Upon exiting the tower, you can see a small murder hole above the door, which allowed control of the passage from above.
The big tower is, unsurprisingly, the largest tower in the castle. On the first floor we find a large square-shaped reception room with an 8-ribbed vaulted ceiling which is 9 meters high. A geminated window with seating faces south. There is an arrow slit at the bottom. The room is also equipped with a fireplace, 1 other lonely arrow slit, cupboards in the wall and latrines. As in most of the other towers, a circular staircase gives access to the higher levels.
In 1415, the Lord of Parthenay was dispossessed of his lands for joining the Burgundian rebellion. Its next owners didn't seem to care much for the castle. As early as 1460, a document states that this praised but deserted castle required large-scale works, but they were never carried out. Le Coudray-Salbart passed through several hands and through the ages was never once remodeled after its initial construction. It leaves us with an incredible example of what a 13th century state-of-the-art fortress should have looked like.
In the courtyard we see traces of walls of the earlier castle which had a ditch to the north. The Saint-Michel Tower was part of this earlier castle and was later incorporated in the current layout.
Inside the corridor linking the portal tower to the mill tower, we see a postern gate above the moat and stairs which lead up to the battlements.
The mill tower has two identical levels, a quadrangular room with 3 arrow slits and a ribbed vault. Above the entrance to the staircase we find another murder hole. In the upper room, the ribs of the vault rest on 4 sculptures of very expressive medieval faces.
We end our tour in the portal tower. A large winch operates the drawbridge. The chain runs along a single arrow slit, while most other castles would use counterweights with a double chain. The room is equipped with a chimney and latrines. High up on the east side is an opening with steps. The function of it remains unknown. One thing is certain, however, these mighty towers of the castle of Coudray-Salbart stand as a timeless testament to the grandeur and resilience of the past, inviting us to explore its secrets and marvel at its enduring beauty.
Time for the arbitrary subjective castle score. I'm gonna have to say a 10. This is an incredible castle.
I think it's a unanimous 10. I mean, you can actually get inside.
It looks like it should have looked in the 13th century, so that's kind of incredible. Thank you so much for watching and leave your own score in the comments.
And otherwise, like, comment, subscribe and all that good YouTube stuff if you want to see more of these kind of castles.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.